What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of ParaTruth Reborn. Now, typically, you would find our show pre recorded on Sunday evenings at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but starting tonight, we are going live on 107.7 FM New Orleans, 105.3 FM the Gulf Coast, and of course, United Public Radio Network. My name is Eric,
I'm Justin.
and honestly, I never thought we would actually say we'd go live again. Like, I thought that was over. I thought we were done with that.
I
Um,
mean, the pre-record is easier in a sense because we don't have to, as you said off air, we don't have to worry about stumbling and stuff. That can all be edited out if we need to. But
Yeah. Well, I'm good at stumbling over everything in life, not just words.
I mean,
Relationships,
we're both klutzy.
work,
It's totally fine.
over everything. Oh goodness. Well, I guess you can go ahead and jump right into the show today. Um, thank you everybody for joining us. We're excited that this is our debut
Hmm.
live episode here, and today we are talking about an ancient guardian basically of the forest, right? If you've been anywhere out in the world, scrolling the internet, or even flipping through the pages of a book, you've probably seen his face. It's been etched into stone, it's hidden among vines, peering out from ancient cathedrals or the bark of old oaks. And I am talking about a character through folklore known as the Green Man.
Now, what's fascinating about this is he's a symbol of life, death, rebirth. Uh, that has haunted our stories for centuries. I mean, it goes well beyond what we realize. I actually told Eric this when I was searching for the Green Man. Like Google, you have to clarify what you're saying when you say Green Man, because apparently there's a lot of things that reference the Green Man,
You
and it's not
know,
all this
you know
mythology.
how many photos of dudes painted green popped up on my Google? Like, I was like, what
Well,
is
I didn't look
happening?
at any pictures, thankfully, and luckily nothing else weird popped up.
There's all kinds of people painted green. It's like, okay, this is Google needs to be very specific. You would think it would understand, but no,
Right.
no.
But I mean, what is he really? Because we'll get into where what the images are of him and stuff like that. But is he a forgotten god, a spirit of nature, or something much older, still watching us from the shadows of the trees?
Right. And so tonight we're going to dive into the myth, the mystery, and the paranormal encounters behind the Green Man himself.
So let's start with the basics here. The Green Man, if you've ever seen the images, is that leafy face you'll find carved into church walls, which is fascinating because this
Mhm.
goes well before Christianity. Garden fountains or medieval manuscripts. But what's wild is that the story goes back 2,000 years ago before the spark of Christianity.
Right. No, for sure. And in fact, you can actually trace similar imagery back to ancient Rome, and even more so, be, like, way early to the Celts, which existed 1,000 years prior to the Christian faith. Now, the Celts themselves especially had a deep reverence for the forest, as they saw it as kind of they basically saw nature as like a living and breathing force that just surrounded them, right? Uh, and so one could certainly believe that it would have led them to the worship of this green man. Now, the green man is actually a modern term which is was coined in 1939 by Lady Julia Somerset, who's also known as Lady Raglan. Uh, now, which she actually came up with this name, which she used in an article published in a folklore journal. Now, prior to 1939, however, the Green Man went by several other names, including the Foliate Head, the Woodwose or Woden, and also Jack in the Green. But for simplification and ease, we're just going to keep calling him the Green Man for the most part here on out through the rest of the episode.
I mean, I prefer to call him the Jack in the Green
I
personally.
mean,
It's
you
a
could do that too.
more palatable name, but
Why did it's weird that like all these different folk tales that we've talked about over the years, Jack is a big name that's always used over and over and over again.
yeah.
Nope, still some technical difficulties. His For some reason his mic keeps getting knocked. I think you're gonna have to start looking into a new Focusrite, perhaps.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, hear you now.
Okay. I think it might be the mic. I might go back to my old mic. Um, the when we did the what is it about the name Jack episode,
Mm,
we never did Jack in the Green.
no.
Um, so, um, Ernie, go upstairs. Um, Now, the Green Man seems to be a very symbolic image representing a cycle of life, the death of winter and the rebirth of spring, uh, leaves sprouting from his mouth, vines wrapping around his face. It's like he's literally becoming the forest or coming out of
Mm.
the forest. Um, and though his image can be found nearly everywhere today, he is traditionally associated with May Day, which is a traditional spring festival with ancient pagan roots. It's now also a modern holiday celebrated on International Workers' Day as International Workers' Day.
Which I've actually never heard of International Workers' Day. I don't know what they celebrate. I know as a worker, I've never been celebrated for anything here in the U.S. So, if anyone has any like special memories of International Workers' Day, please share. I'd like to know what you guys, what happens, what goes on with those. Um, Now, you see, what's really interesting though is that when Christianity spread across Europe, they didn't just erase the Green Man. I mean, typically when the Christian faith was growing, it rarely erased anything with other pagan cultures. Instead, in this case, it actually absorbed him. You see, suddenly these pagan nature spirits were showing up carved into church doorways and cathedrals, which raises a pretty big question, right? Like, why would a Christian church include a pagan symbol in its architecture? Now, there's, of course, a number of different beliefs. Some are maybe legit, some are just very creative. Well, when it came to the early church, it was actually common practice for the church to adopt certain pagan symbols and images in order to help make the transition into Christianity easier. A good prime example of this is the legend of the Celtic cross, which was believed to be designed by St. Patrick. Some will say that it wasn't St. Patrick, and there's a number of other names who are associated to the Celtic cross, but for the majority, it is believed that St. Patrick was the one who designed it, so we're going to just stick with that legend and story right now. But Patrick, who basically adopted the Irish pagan sun symbol into the image of the cross, was in order to help the Irish transition from one belief into another. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I mean, the Celtic cross is pretty well known. It's just a cross with a circle in the center. Um, Guarantee you've seen it probably multiple times throughout your week when you're traveling. It's on churches. It's just a number of jewelry and photos, images. You can't miss it. Um, but so as for the Green Man, it was also likely adopted as a symbol of life, death, rebirth, and even potentially nature, God's creation, or a renewal of life through Christ. Now, despite this likely adaptation, there are still others who think this inclusion of the Green Man was actually a quiet rebellion, a much older belief system that still lingered beneath the surface. And of course, this gets into conspiracy, right? Because is there a sect of Christianity worshiping the Green Man secretly underground, right? Uh, and of course, we don't know the answer to that. I'm sure there's plenty of people in various faiths worshiping other things. I mean, most of us have idols in some way or another, right? So I wouldn't doubt that.
Well, I mean, and we've talked about this before, even recently, that not just Christianity, but other uh, religions and mythos throughout history have absorbed the the conquering absorbed the other
Mhm.
religions as a way to help um what's the word I'm looking for, um can't think of it, but basically bring,
Transition, meld, bring together,
yeah,
make
we'll
a
go with
new,
meld
create
the
one.
conquered into their religion, to make it easier, basically, is all I'm going for. But yeah, I mean, Christianity has done a lot of that with pagan beliefs. The Christmas tree, Halloween,
Mm.
became All Hallows Eve. Um, so yeah, you see that a lot in a lot of cultures. Christianity is just the most recent, basically. Um, Now let's talk meaning, because the Green Man isn't just some decorative face. Uh, he represents something powerful. He's nature's consciousness, the reminder that we belong to Earth, not the other way around. Leaves come from his mouth. That's life springing from death. And there's that connection to the divine masculine too, which again, you see that in Christianity. It's not in all religions. Christianity is one of the ones where you have that divine masculine, he, him, God. Um, the idea of a protector, a father figure tied to the wild, but also something untamed.
Yeah.
Um, Something, I don't know if you came across this, but I know this name from fiction, the Arrow King.
I don't know of this.
Okay, so the Arrow King is basically a fae or fairy, and they believe he's king of the fairies. It's very vague on that part, but that's kind of what it reminded me of when I started seeing the images
Hmm.
of the Green Man.
Sure.
Um, and the only reason it came up to my mind is because I'm listening to the Dresden Files on
Mm.
audiobook. So, and I love that set of books, and he is a prominent character in that. So that's why I brought it to the forefront for me.
Yeah, for sure. It always brings when I see the Green Man or read about him, I always think of comic books because I'm pretty sure it's your Swamp Thing. Um,
Oh, yeah.
he looks almost identical to some of the images of the Green Man that we see on cathedral walls and above doorways. I have a Green Man door knocker that I use as a plaque in my library as well, which it's they're all like all the various images of the Green Man are pretty pretty similar. There's minor differences between some of them, but for the most part, they kind of look a lot like Swamp Thing. And I don't know why the paranormal always makes me think of comic books. Maybe it's just because I'm a nerd and everything comes back to comics. But
You are a nerd.
I am a nerd, I know.
Aren't
If
we
you're
all
watching the
really,
video,
though?
you can see all the comic stuff behind me.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing though is the reminder that we belong to the earth, not the other way around. I think is actually very interesting because when you consider, at least in my faith, right, you consider the Christian faith, it's actually they go hand in hand. We both belong to the earth while at the same time owning the earth. We're like commanded to take care of the earth, to tend it, to keep it safe. But yet, when we die, our dust returns to the earth. So you're a part of it and you come from it, but at the same time, you're protecting it and caring for it. I don't know. It's just like one of those things where it's like the earth is highly important. And I think a lot of people Unfortunately, nowadays, of course, I mean, obviously there's movements happening to try to clean the oceans, to take care of the lands, to stop deforestation, right, to protect the animals and stuff.
Mhm.
On top of just the trees, and we need trees. If we lose all the trees, we might all suffocate and die because there's no oxygen in the trees. I don't know. Um,
Well, I mean, this all goes back to when man was young. I mean, most
no.
religions came from worshiping nature, worshiping the sun and the moon, worshiping the ancestors, stuff like that. So,
Well, so when it comes to the Green Man, as you'd already kind of mentioned, he is more or less both creation and destruction, right? He basically brings forth growth, but he also is the storm that tears it all down as well. He's basically the yin and the yang, a simple balance, which again is probably why the Christian church actually did adopt this image into it, because it's very similar, at least to a extent, uh, of what the Christian God is like, both the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega.
mhm.
We see that mentioned multiple times throughout scriptures, and we see those similarities throughout history among a number of different faiths, but some more so than others.
Now, same thing with what I'm about to say here. Maybe that he's not good, he's not evil, he's kind of both. He's
Mm,
wild nature embodied, and again, going back to the Arrow King, that's kind of the idea of him. He's the wild fate. He's not bound by summer or winter. He's independent
right.
of that. Um, Now, here's where things get really interesting. Modern encounters.
Yeah. So there are people who have claimed to see or have seen the Green Man at one time or another, or at least something like him. In fact, there is one story from England where hikers reported a figure watching them from the tree line. They actually described it as a tall man covered in moss, with eyes that looked like amber light shining through leaves.
Now, I've heard similar accounts from the US too. Usually deep in the woods, near old growth areas. Some describe them as an elemental, others say fae or even forest guardian spirits. The question is, though, in these instances, is this pareidolia mixed with a fear reaction to the forest or something else entirely? And that's something that I have thought about since we have been looking at this particular thing is pareidolia, and we can say that about a lot of things in the paranormal world
Sure.
too.
No, 100%. I mean, when you talk about like walking through the forest, how many times do you walk through the forest or your local parks, the woods, and you feel like there's something watching you, right? And yeah, you got birds watching you, you got other animals watching you, the little tiny bugs and insects, right? They're like, don't step on me, I'm watching you, right? Um, but but it's
Are we in
typically,
a Disney movie right
yeah, I'm just saying, a bug's life, okay? You gotta watch it. It'll teach you everything you need to know. Um, but typically, when you're walking through the woods and you feel like there's something watching you, it's something that's a bit more primal in nature and feeling within yourself, right? It's like there's something that's not right, something that isn't normal that is watching you from somewhere beyond the trees. And it's that type of feeling that I think a lot of these people get. In fact, they actually use this description, not only with the Green Man, but also with creatures like the Dog Man or even Bigfoot, where there's this heightened sense that you're being watched and something is maybe tracking you. So you're always kind of on edge, looking, watching your back, like, why am I so paranoid?
hmm
And it's very possible it's because there is something or somebody watching you, maybe in a spiritual form, even.
Right.
Well, now, when it comes to the Green Man, though, like I said, described as a tall man covered in moss with eyes that looked like amber light. People are saying that this might be an elemental of some sort, or a fae, or even a forest guardian spirit. This all more or less sounds pretty similar to some other cryptids that people have also noted and often described with the same features. In fact, some of those cryptids are the Ohio grassman, for one example, plus the cedar bog monster, the Honey Island swamp monster, and of course the Bigfoot, which brings to question whether the Green Man is actually a god of some sort, or if he's just a cryptid that ancient people worshipped after several encounters. And that's something I think translates to the whole cryptid diversity as well, because things like the Ohio grassman, the cedar bug monster, Honey Island swamp monster, um, Bigfoot, even the Green Man, they could all be one and the same creature, but based on locale, may be worshipped as one entity, may be viewed as another. People try to separate these creatures as being different beings altogether, or at least different branches of the same being, right? But it's very possible it's one and the same entity, uh, or animal, creature, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm. Now, what's wild is that these carvings aren't just random art. Some believe they're anchors, gateways that keep something ancient tied to the physical world. Some maybe every green man carving isn't a symbol of him, it's a symbol for him, a way to invite or contain that energy. Um, I think that's why the Green Man's making such a comeback. You see his face everywhere now: tattoos, sculptures, festivals. Um, you even see him, like you mentioned, the pop culture aspect with Swamp Thing, or even again the Arrow King is in pop culture because he's in the story.
Right. Well, then we also go back to like this whole, especially when you consider where we are in the world today, right? A lot of people are getting a little frustrated with how things are being run by the governments, even within religion, how things are being run. And so a lot of people, especially younger generations, are starting to step back and try to delve more into nature. They want to become more connected with it. They want to pursue nature and even live and work within it. And that's where the Green Man starts to really pop up. He's kind of like you know, he's kind of like this beacon to people who want freedom, who want to get away from the mundane and the urban life and all the politics. It's a sense of freedom, right? And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago as well, where people are starting to kind of get into various practices in which draw upon nature spirits and nature energies in order to reconnect with the earth. On top of that, though, despite like those things, and then also the actual encounters that people have had, there have also been paranormal encounters over the years as well. Now, again, I think this kind of relates to some of the other cryptids we've talked about, but apparently there have been a number of reports regarding sudden temperature drops, static in recordings, or even voices saying "leave" near stone faces or carvings of the Green Man. Now, again, this could all just kind of be played up and be coincidence. But at the same time, we've also know plenty of people who've been out looking for Bigfoot and suddenly they had these static happening in their recordings, or temperature dropping, or the atmosphere shifting in some way. We of course see this in the spiritual realm, right? Whenever we're doing paranormal investigations and we're encountering various spirits, it's very possible that this green man, much like Bigfoot, much like a ghost, is very capable of manifesting itself in both a physical form, but also a spectral form. And that's why we tend to get these number of different, uh, I guess, recordings on our various devices, or even with our own bodies when we notice it.
Well, and that really delves into as well, like we've talked about this with a lot of different creatures or entities that naming something and believing in it brings it to life, or has an entity attach it to it, or that image. Just look at Slender Man. We've brought
Mhm.
that up multiple times on the show. Um, yeah, it's one of those things where it could absolutely be an entity in and of himself, or it could be something different altogether. Um,
Well, yeah, for sure. And I by no means am against this idea that, when people are thinking of or even pursuing this idea of the Green Man, or they're taking photos of him, or artwork, I should say, and posting it up on their boards or the walls or as decor around their home, that it isn't going to manifest some sort of entity in some way, right? And we see this so many times throughout history. We've talked about this on the show a lot with a number of our friends. Um, the collective mind is very powerful. It's a very possible that this green man has had disappeared over centuries of time and now is suddenly reappearing because there's a new spark uh, in its being, right? And in its existence. And the more that people kind of delve into it, they learn about it, they want to, uh, whether it's worship or they're trying to use them for some sort of energy practices, or simply as just a symbol of like, this is nature, this is freedom, this is peace, right? There is that collective conscience that could potentially manifest some sort of entity, whether or not it's the green man that we can read about here online, or if it's something else entirely. One will only know until when you know. We'll see if we start getting phone calls about, hey, there's a green man in my closet, and he keeps knocking on the wood for some reason. It's like we need him gone, right?
well, I mean, that goes back to that case that you've talked about a couple times of the woman who had the entity with it was black but had red eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a church group pray with you to try and get rid of it.
Yep.
Um, and then I know this is going completely off topic, but I'm if I'm remembering right, you never really heard from her after that, after she called you and said it's gone.
She did call once after that, and it once it was gone. I mean, that was just the whole thing was so fascinating. Um, but yeah, it's like I talked to this woman alone, right? It was just on the phone. She gave me all this information, so I knew what this entity looked like according to her, right? Standing at the top of her stairs. Um, and so yeah, when I had this prayer group come together, a group of friends and my pastor at the time come together and start praying over this woman and the entity in her house. One of my buddies came to me, pulled me aside, and said, "Dude, when we were praying, I just saw this thing, this like black mass screaming, and it had these bright red eyes, um, and it was just freaking out and staring at me." I was like, "Dude, that's exactly what she described: this black mass with red eyes standing at the top of her stairs, right?" And so we're praying and it's screaming, which means it's effective. Something's happening. And then the next day to find out that she's suddenly feeling calm. She feels like the presence is gone. And I didn't tell her that we had completed the prayer. I didn't tell her that we're even going to do it. So the fact that it was gone all of a sudden showed not only the power of prayer, but showed that this entity was indeed gone, at least for a time. And we know that through scripture, um, that in some cases, when you cast a spirit out of a place or a person, a home, it can go around the earth looking for a new place to dwell, and finding nothing, comes back to its original home, all swept up clean, and then goes back in, taking with it seven more spirits more strong than itself, right? And this is the idea that uh, when you cast a spirit out of something, it has to be replaced. That energy has to be replaced by something good and positive. And of course, in scripture, we're talking about God. But we know plenty of people, of course, who have cast out dark energies and replaced it with light, right? White light and a good energy, and it has kept that darkness at bay. Um, So with that said, like going, I know I tend to drag my stories on a lot. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. I like just talking. Um, until I don't, and then I'm dead silent for hours on end, and people don't like that either.
Until Justin's getting upset that you're talking to a guest multiple questions.
Hey, hey, that's just good show business, okay?
That's you trying to get all the questions out of your mind before you forget them all.
Well, no, it's not. It's because, like, they're all on topic. If we're like asking questions on one topic and I'll let you go and you change the topic, then I gotta pull that yes back to another topic. And it's like it doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this? Just keep going on the one
I'm
topic,
just
right?
teasing you.
Oh man, it's giving me a heart attack at 40. Gosh. Um, but yeah, no. So after that whole thing, and she did say that like that entity was gone. It was about 2 weeks later. She called me back and said that suddenly felt this energy was back again. Had a little convo with her and found out that her mom had moved back into her house all of a sudden after a few weeks. And I realized based on that discussion that part of this energy she was feeling wasn't the spirit coming back, but instead was anxiety toward her mother, who she did not have a good relationship with. And at that point, it kind of shifts from, oh, there's this spirit we need to get rid of, to, oh no, there's this brokenness between you and your mom that needs to be fixed. That is something that I personally do not have um, the ability to do, but also don't have the means. But there are professionals out there who can help, right? And so that's how I directed her there. And that tends to happen. That happens in a lot of cases. A lot of people think it's just spiritual. Everything is just spiritual in the paranormal, but it's not. A lot of it is also mental. A lot of it is also your relationships with the people you surround yourself with. There is a lot that goes into it. So when you're doing paranormal investigations, it's important to kind of check off everything. You want to be very well rounded because you go in hunting. I use that word loosely, looking for something. I use that one, and you don't find it. It doesn't mean that something isn't happening. So we need to find out what that thing is. Okay, my story's done. I feel satisfied that the story has made its full circle.
Well, Heidi, no problem about being late. Totally cool. You're always promoting our show, so we love that you do that, and we're so happy that you're here in our chat room as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, something that is applying to the Green Man as far as why he's showing up so much. Um, you know, is it because humanity keeps straying too far away from nature? Are we so far um, from our roots and not connecting with nature that we used to that he just keeps popping up in not just in architecture, but people are seeing him quote unquote uh, in trees, in bushes. The list goes on there. Um, is it something that he is an entity of some kind, of god, a ghost maybe, or something else entirely? Like, or again, is this a pareidolia? Is this something where we're trying to assign what we see to a human face or anything? I mean, we do it with clouds too.
Sure. Yeah, I think if the Green Man is real, I think he's more of a like a archetypical. Go with that word. Y'all know I haven't been in college in a while. Okay, I don't know all my words. Basically, he has the ability to take on many forms, and in this case, he would be more of a spirit. We see him in uh, basically the artistry of Pan, right? We see him in I think it's Cernanos, something like that. Even in the modern idea of Mother Nature's counterpart. And I think if we are seeing him pretty regularly nowadays, or people are, maybe there is kind of like it's kind of like a warning. It's kind of like this reminder, like, hey, look, you are destroying this planet, right? There's deforestation. You are killing the animals you're not supposed to be killing. You are trashing the oceans and the rivers. You're basically destroying it. The ozone that's going away supposedly, right? And now it's kind of inviting this entity back to kind of take claim and show people like, hey, there is more to all these things around you, more to nature than what you think, right? Because like for a long time, I'd go outside, I'd say, oh, that tree is a tree. Oh, that piece of grass, that blade of grass is a blade of grass, right? That water is just water. But no, when you actually take the time to sit in the middle of the woods, or I like this when I'm near the ocean. I just sit in the ocean. I bob up and down. Right when you're there and you're inviting it all in, you're absorbing. You start to realize nature that seems to be not living. Right, the trees and all that stuff is actually a living, breathing thing. It has a spirit that hovers over it. It was created by God. And so there is much more to these things than simply inanimate objects. Like there is a butterfly effect when you start destroying things and harming the planet. Uh, and I mentioned the animals. Like, why do you keep saying animals? Well, animals are very important in terms of the ecological system that we have in the world, right? So we know here in the U.S., wolves are constantly oh, you're gonna get me on this one. I'm gonna try not to though. But Trump is very supportive of killing wolves, and that is very, 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 very bad for the environment of the U.S. because wolves are a very key element to keeping the wild. Right. In fact, there was a study conducted when wolves were initially re-released back into Yellowstone. After just putting several wolves back in over the course of a year or two, it completely changed the landscape of Yellowstone Park, all because of wolves that were added, because of things they were eating. It was stopping plant eaters from killing all the grass and eating all the leaves. It was cutting down on the fish population in the rivers, and so the rivers started to change course, and the land started shifting. There's this whole thing that happens, right? And it's something I think we need to be very aware of. Uh, there is a butterfly effect. And I think in part that is why we tend to see this possible green man image start showing up because there's this warning sign saying, hey, look, remember what I am, who I am, what this is. You need to be careful.
Well, Heidi says she thinks he's more of a nature spirit or elemental.
Mm-hmm.
She also didn't hear of people actually having encounters with him either, which typically I haven't until actually digging into the research too. Um, Now, what's fascinating is, we've brought up a couple of like Swamp Thing. We've brought up um, who did I say? Oh, the Arrow King, um, Pan. There a couple other characters from we'll say pop culture because
Mm-hmm.
um, Shakespeare, Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream is kind of this embodiment of the wild man, the wild fae. Um, the kind of like Pan,
Mm-hmm.
and then you also have Mister is it Tumless?
I thought you were about to say Mr. Miyagi. I said, don't do
No,
that
from
Miyagi.
the Chronicles of Narnia
Oh, yeah, yeah.
series.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, if Mister Miyagi is linked to the
Green
Green
man.
Man, I don't know if the Green Man does wax on, wax off if he's a part of nature. Uh,
He might be if people are not being very nice to nature. He might start waxing on, waxing off some of these people. Just saying.
but that's the thing about a lot of the things we talk about in general too. Is this something that is just like you said? It's an archetype. Is it something that is in the collective consciousness that everybody thinks of this being?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't call him the Green Man, um, but tap into that so that you can use him in a story or video game, even, or movie. That's one of those things that I've I've thought about since becoming a writer. Am I picking up on something that's more than just that?
No, 100%. And there is also, there's always that probability that this is, the Green Man is something that was just created, right? A story and nothing more. Now we know he extends way back to 1,000 years, at least 1,000 years prior to the spark of Christianity, right? And we're talking about the Celts. Um, we know that the Celts had worshipped this quote unquote Green Man for some time. We know that he was part of their culture, but why? We don't have that information. We don't know exactly how the Green Man began. We don't know what his origin story is. We just know that he was there. And then when Christianity swept through the world, it started to adopt his image into the various artwork of the cathedrals. And again, I think that goes back to this kind of similar supporting role in some sense um, to who God is in the Christian faith, right? He is this protector. He's this beginning and end. He is, I mean, I hate to use this word, but in a sense, he is good and bad. He is 100% good. Mind you, there is no bad in him, but he allows bad things to happen for the greater purpose of humanity. Um, but and with that said, like bad things don't happen without his okay. And so I think they adopt this particular image into the church as kind of like, here is a visual manifestation for those who at the time were worshipers of the good man. Come to our church and worship him here, right? And then, yeah, let's face it, there's a little bit of stuff happening there of like mind control, if you will, trying to twist people into, you know, uh, of taking on the faith and understanding it. Uh, but that's kind of how it is with people in general. Nobody just flips their belief system like with a snap of the fingers. It takes time. It takes correcting. It takes people explaining, helping them understand certain situations before they can be like, okay, hold on, maybe my way of thinking is wrong. Maybe this isn't quite right, or maybe this is right, and I need to figure out why. And I think in this case, it was the same way. The Christian Church adopted this image in order to help convert people and help them understand who God is, slowly but surely. Because again, we saw it with St. Patrick and the Irish, and you see it time and time again throughout the world. Wherever Christianity spread, it adopted various images. Um, the five-pointed star, often used in various pagan rituals and Wiccan. The Christian Church adopted that at one point as the five wounds of Christ, and they used that for a while. There are a number of other symbols as well. Sorry, I got my cat walking by. He's making his appearance today on live. Hey, bud, you're in the way. Okay. Uh, you guys know how it is. You can't just move a cat. They're just there, and he does what he wants to do until he's done. Gosh. Anyway, go. Yeah, I'll let this go. Go ahead. I want to try to course him out of here. Put your put your button down, please. Thank you.
Um, so what is some of your final thoughts on this? Is it something where humanity is being called back to nature? Should we go back to nature a little bit more? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think we absolutely should be going back to nature. It's something I do nearly every weekend. I go to the park or the national park over here in Cleveland. I spend at least an hour, 30 minutes top or minimum, right? At least an hour there, just absorbing nature because there is something refreshing and revitalizing about it. Like, I mean, I think pretty much anybody can walk into a park or walk next to a large body of water, lake, an ocean, and suddenly feel different, right? In a good way. And it's because our bodies are naturally in tune, our spirits are naturally in tune to that environment. It's where we were supposed to be from the beginning. Uh, but nowadays, myself included, we do this thing called doom scrolling, right? And we
Mhm.
just like scroll and scroll and scroll. And I will tell myself over and over and over again, you're not going to doom scroll tonight. And then 3 hours later, my phone's like, hey, we're at 2% battery. You've been on here for 6 hours, you know. So I think it's very important that we need to go outside and get away from the phones. And that when I say go outside, I mean leave your phone somewhere, right? Keep it indoors. I put mine in my trunk when I go to the park sometimes, just so I don't have it on me. And so in that case, yeah, I think this is, if nothing else, a call to come back to our origins, come back to the world in the sense of Earth, as opposed to the world in the sense of this is what the modern world wants you to do. All the phones, all the AI, all the computers, like it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I agree 100% about we need to have at least some type of connection to nature, even if that's like, for me, example, I'll go out in the backyard, I'll put a fire up and try to write.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like Heidi mentioned, it's a grounding for a lot of people. Not everybody, but I think if people gave it a chance, I mean, you would find that nature actually has a calming effect on the human mind.
No,
Uh,
100%.
Now, about the Green Man, what are your thoughts about? Is he something, an entity, or is it just something that has just been written about?
I mean, I think he has to be an entity, you know, even if he was just written about. We talked about the collective mind, and I think that when people believe in something written as much as they do, just a story or of a person, then that story can manifest itself, right? Or that entity can manifest itself. So I do think that it is a spirit of some sort. Um, I don't think it's a god. I don't think it's a god at all. I think that he is some sort of forest spirit, maybe, if he exists. Um, and even if he isn't, I think he is some sort of beacon to a better way and a better understanding of our world, and not the current one, not the modern one, but like how to go back, step back, and realize and remember who we are, who we should be, and how we need to protect the earth that we live on before it's too late.
Well, but you brought this up earlier, like with talking about what Green Man is, or is he linked to like cryptid of some kind, and that
Mhm.
people have worshipped these creatures for years. So,
Mhm.
in a sense, he could have been a god at one time.
I mean, he could have been. Yeah, I mean, now we're talking about like how do you define a god, right? So
Right.
that's a very different thing. Anything could be a god. This water bottle, I drink out of this water bottle. Well, I guess this particular one for like the last 48 minutes, but another water bottle, if I were to drink it religiously, out of that one bottle, could become my god. Like, if I don't have this water, I do somebody who would freak out, like literally lose their mind if they didn't have their water bottle. They had so much
A specific
anxiety
one.
in general, well, water in general, but
Oh,
primarily because they had this water bottle. It's like if she didn't have that bottle with her, she was losing it. Like pure anxiety, could not talk, could not think, could not do anything because she didn't have this water. It's like that became a god. That is something you need for support. That is something you need to have with you in order to move about your day. Like you can't do anything without it. Uh, so it's important to recognize what a god is and who you're raising up as a god. Um, so yeah, something like this. If this was an entity, let's say this was like a Bigfoot creature, right? The man is actually just a Bigfoot, because we know that the descriptions of him are very similar to what we see on the Ohio Grassman and Bigfoot and a number of other likewise cryptids. And so, if there was a culture or people who came across this Bigfoot-like creature and saw it as something much more majestic than what they were, they might worship it. They might say, "This is my God," and raise it up, even though it can't do anything, right?
mhm.
It's just a creature. Maybe it has magical powers. I don't know. We don't really know. Um, but
Depends on who you talk about. If you're
well, it
talking
depends
about
on who you
Bigfoot,
talk about. Yeah,
anyways,
yeah,
but um,
right.
but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's just people will worship things that as a god, even though they may not. And again, you already said it. How do you define a god? You other than people worship it.
Hmm.
I mean, whatever that may be.
Apple products, anybody? Come on now. I mean, it's true though. Like, I mean, how many of us will not be caught dead without our iPhones? Some
Phones in
of us,
general.
well, yeah, and it's just like we're constantly staring at it. We have, in a sense, whether we believe it or not, have turned our technology into our gods because we're not willing to do anything without them. You know, it's like, what's it like outside? I don't know. Let's ask Siri.
Hmm.
Let's find out. No, go step outside, take a look, open your windows, whatever, and enjoy nature, right? But instead, we're going to place our faith in what the phone says, even if it's wrong. We're like, okay, this is the answer. I look outside and it's sunny, but it says it's going to rain all day, so we should just stay home. Okay. I mean, seeing is believing, but you know, when you're reading, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who doesn't like to have a phone as their guide.
Well, um, with that being said, too, like I'll check weather on my phone just
Yeah.
because I don't watch the news, so I don't see a forecast at all. But um,
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing it, but it's like if you're gonna plan your whole day,
no,
you
yeah, I
know,
don't plan my whole day. It's just one of those things where it's like, what should I wear today?
right.
Not what am I gonna do? It's supposed to rain all day, um, and the weatherman is only right 60% of the time,
Which is
anyways,
wild. Why are
because
they
we
getting
can't
paid?
control
Why
nature.
are y'all getting paid?
Which I mean, back to this point, with the Green Man, you can't control nature, and you can't control the human mind to
Right.
see things or even be afraid when you see something that you can't understand too. Um, but yeah, I don't believe he is a god. He may have been an entity of some kind that people might have worshipped at one time or another, but um, I I believe him to be like a forest spirit or fae of some kind, something like that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's my perspective on that, because it's one of those things where we can't even like I said at the beginning, you can't even really find narrowing it down to what the Green Man is. I as far as Google is concerned, anyways, we'll say
Our gods are wrong. They don't know the answer.
that. So we've got a lot of great stuff going on here at ParaTruth. We are doing live now, like we mentioned. Um, we actually have a supporter on our Spreaker Supporters Club. So if you haven't checked that out, that's one way to help out ParaTruth. Or if you just get on and talk to us, that helps us greatly, and we love the interaction. And that's kind of why I wanted to switch to live, because it helps with listener or watcher interaction too. And please don't kill me if I butcher this name. I'm so sorry if I do. Please correct me in comments or whatever. Jurahala Whitting is the name of the person that's started donating to the supporters club. So thank you so much. Um, Next week we've got a really interesting show planned. We're going to be bringing on Kat Ward from Paranormal Heart, and we're going to be discussing common, the most common questions about the paranormal. So if you have questions about the paranormal that you've not heard answers to, get it in the comments. Get it. I'll be doing posts about it before next Tuesday. Comment on that as well, because I mean, I can come up with a bunch of common questions, but I would rather hear from you, our listeners, what your questions are about the paranormal. Um, Anything else I'm forgetting?
Mm, well, I mean, Halloween is over, which
Oh, I haven't forgot that.
happy belated Halloween, everybody. I hope it was good, like fun for y'all. Um, but that means, Christmas is not far around the corner, and
Hey,
sadly,
you
so
watch your
many
tongue.
people have Christmas lights up already. Anyone listening, if you already have Christmas lights up, I am shaming you. You should take them down and wait at least till after Thanksgiving. But so that means we do have our Christmas specials coming up. So pretty much through the entire month of December. Uh, Sometimes it starts like right after Thanksgiving, but I think this year, yeah, it'll just start in December because we're live on Tuesdays now instead of Sundays.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, our whole December will be filled with Christmas content that is related to the paranormal and the spooky and the weird and all that wonderful, not so jolly stuff. But it's
Well,
one
we'll
of our
say
favorite
the
times of years.
majority because there are a couple of guests in the
Right.
a couple of the weeks. But something we've never talked about is Yuletide, so we'll get into that. And I have not done um, research in a very long time on Yuletide, so I'll have to brush up for sure. Um, so yeah, again, this has been a live show on 107.7 FM New Orleans, 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and United Public Radio Network. Make sure you're checking all the great shows on the network. Heidi will be posting those regularly, so make sure you check that out. Yeah, make sure you like, share, subscribe, so that way when we go live, you'll be seeing us. And until next week, folks, where you'll find us same time, same channel. My name is Justin.
And I'm Eric. Peace.